Lieutenant Jason Hartley had seen many strange things in his time with the Interstellar Peace Corps, but nothing prepared him for Valora Prime as his shuttle descended through the planet's upper clouds. Jason looked out the window. The sky was a soft purple, and the land below sparkled like polished glass. Towering white trees swayed gently in the wind, their leaves glowing faintly under the twin suns. The cities looked like they were made of crystal and silk, rising from the ground, like flowers in bloom. Not bad, Jason muttered to himself, adjusting the collar of his uniform. Let's just hope they like humans. The ship touched down smoothly at the landing pad. A soft hum followed as the engines powered down. Jason stood up, grabbed his small travel bag, and walked toward the exit ramp. His boots clicked softly on the metal floor. He was calm on the outside, but deep inside, his heart beat just a little faster. This was Earth's first direct invitation to the Valoran, a peaceful group of spacefaring civilizations. And Jason, out of all people, had been chosen to represent humanity. As the ramp lowered, a group of tall, elegant beings stood waiting. The Valorans were humanoid, but carried themselves with a kind of grace Jason had only seen in birds gliding through the air.
Ow.
Their skin had a soft golden sheen, and their long robes shimmered like starlight. They bowed slightly as Jason stepped forward. "Welcome, Lieutenant Jason Hartley of Earth," said a calm voice. Jason turned to see a tall Valoran woman with silver blue eyes and braided hair. She wore a long purple robe with patterns that changed color as she moved. "I am Salraya, Speaker of the High Circle. It is an honor to meet you." Jason smiled and gave a respectful nod. "Thank you, Speaker Salraya. The honor is mine." She gave a small smile in return. "Come, you must be tired. Your quarters are prepared, and we have provided you with formal attire for tomorrow's welcoming banquet." Her through the garden paths that surrounded the landing site. Everything seemed peaceful here. Birds sang softly, and the air smelled sweet, like cinnamon and rain. Small lights floated above the walkways, glowing gently like fireflies. As they walked, Salraya spoke of the Accord. The Valoran Accord values peace, patience, and understanding. Every member brings their own strengths to the circle. Look forward to learning what humanity offers. Jason nodded. "We're quick learners," he said with a grin. "Sometimes a little too quick." Salraya raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. She gestured toward a tall, curved building. "Ahead, this will be your residence during your stay. You will find a robe in your room. It is custom to wear it during formal gatherings. Tomorrow, you will meet the other delegates." Jason thanked her and entered the building. The interior was quiet and clean, made of smooth stone and glowing walls. A gentle sound of running water came from somewhere nearby. His room was spacious, with a wide bed and large windows overlooking the glowing forest. On the bed was a folded robe, soft light blue, and made of a silky material. Jason picked it up and smiled. "Fancy." He tossed his bag on the chair, took off his boots, and stretched. Well, they weren't lying. This place is amazing. He walked over to the window and looked out at the alien world. For the first time in weeks, he felt relaxed. The sky had begun to darken, and the stars came out not in clusters like Earth's sky, but in beautiful patterns that pulsed like gentle heartbeats. Jason sat on the bed and leaned back. He closed his eyes and let out a long breath. "I hope I don't mess this up," he whispered. But he didn't feel nervous, not really. He had trained for this, studied dozens of alien cultures, and passed every test. Still, there was something strange about being the only human in a world so different from his own. He took off his uniform jacket and placed it neatly over a chair. The room was warm, so he rolled up his sleeves and leaned back again. Hands behind his head, a small tone sounded from the wall. A voice spoke gently. "Guest Hartley, your presence will be requested at the welcoming banquet at midnight tomorrow. Please wear the provided formal robe. A guide will arrive to escort you." Jason smiled. "Got it." Fancy robe, banquet, smile, and don't say anything dumb. Stood up, stretched again, and walked into the washing chamber. The lights turned on automatically, glowing a soft white, Jason glanced at his reflection in the mirror. His brown hair was a little messy from the flight, and there were dark circles under his eyes. He said to his reflection, "Tomorrow's the big day." He washed up, changed into a soft sleep tunic provided by the Valerans, and lay down on the bed. The mattress adjusted perfectly to his shape, and the pillows were like clouds as he drifted off to sleep. Jason thought about what tomorrow would bring. Meeting alien leaders, representing Earth, and making a good impression. It was a lot. But deep down, he believed in humanity's place in the stars. "I won't let them down," he whispered. Outside, the stars of Valora Prime twinkled in silent harmony, watching over the strange new visitor from Earth. The next morning, Jason Hartley woke up to the sound of soft music. It wasn't coming from a speaker. The walls themselves seemed to hum with a peaceful tune, like a lullaby sung by the wind. Jason stretched and sat up on the edge of the bed, the sunlight streaming in from the wide windows was gentle and golden. Outside, strange birds glided through the sky, their feathers glowing faintly. A new day had begun on Valora Prime. He stood up and walked to the closet where the robe had been placed. It was still there, light blue, soft, and perfectly folded. He ran his fingers over it. It was smoother than silk. Jason assumed this was their version of formal wear. A soft chime came from the doorway. "Enter," Jason said. The door slid open, and a young Valoran male stood there with a polite smile. He wore simple robes with a sash that changed colors slowly. "I am Leorin," the guide said. "I've been sent to escort you to the banquet hall. If you are ready, we may proceed." Jason nodded. "Yep, just give me a second to get dressed." Stepped into the washing chamber, cleaned up quickly, and put on the blue robe. It fit well, even though he wasn't used to wearing loose clothing like this. He looked in the mirror, turning left and right. "Not bad," he said to himself. Outside, Leorin led him through the glowing halls of the residence complex. Other guests from different species were arriving too, tall beings with crystal limbs, short creatures with fur and feathers, and floating jellyfish-like aliens who shimmered with every word. Soon they reached the banquet hall. It was enormous, shaped like a spiral shell, with walls made of glass that looked out over a glowing waterfall. A long table made of living wood stretched across the room, with cushions and benches set in a circle. As Jason entered, dozens of Valoran eyes turned toward him. He gave a friendly wave and smile. Some returned the gesture. Others whispered softly, "Please take your place," Leorin said with a bow. Jason nodded and sat at his assigned seat between a jellyfish-like diplomat and a graceful Valoran woman who looked a bit familiar. She might have been one of the council members. The meal began soon after. Soft music played, and servants brought out trays of colorful food, shining fruits, steamed root vegetables, and slices of what looked like glowing jelly. Jason didn't know what half of it was, but he took small bites and smiled politely. "Oh," surprisingly. It all tasted good, sweet, fresh, and a little like mint and honey. The hall was warm. Jason began to feel a bit hot under the robe. He looked around. None of the other delegates seemed bothered, but Jason had always disliked warm rooms. He leaned over to Leorin and whispered, "Hey, is it okay if I take this off? It's kind of hot." Leorin's eyes widened slightly. If you are sure, honored guest," Jason smiled. "Great, thanks." Thinking nothing of it, he stood up slightly and slid the outer robe off his shoulders, revealing the plain black undershirt he wore underneath. He folded the robe and placed it neatly beside him. It was silent. Utter silence. The soft music had stopped. Conversations froze in mid-sentence. Even the jellyfish diplomat beside him stopped pulsing and hovered. In place, Jason blinked. Is everything okay?" Then came the whispering, soft, sharp, surprised. All across the room, Valoran women were staring at him, their eyes wide, faces turning pale gold or, in some cases, blushing a deep blue. Selraya, who sat near the head of the table, stood slowly. Her expression was unreadable. Calm, but with a flicker of something else. Surprise? Maybe? Curiosity? Jason looked around. Did I do something wrong? A Valoran man at the far end coughed into his drink. Another guest accidentally knocked over a glowing fruit. Finally, Selraya spoke. Lieutenant Hartley, are you aware of the meaning behind the removal of formal attire during a ceremonial gathering on Valora Prime? Jason froze. No. I was just hot. I didn't mean anything by it. She nodded slowly. In our culture, such a gesture is considered deeply personal. It is a symbol of trust, or of romantic intent. Jason's face turned red. Wait, what? I was just trying to cool down. I didn't mean anything like that. The Valoran woman sitting next to him leaned away slightly, covering her mouth. Her eyes twinkled with amusement. Selraya raised her hand gently. Please, everyone. There is no harm done. Lieutenant Hartley comes from a different world. Cultural differences are expected. The guests slowly returned to their seats. The music resumed softly. Conversations picked up again, though more carefully. Jason pulled the robe back on as fast as he could. His ears felt like they were burning. Leorin leaned in and whispered, Perhaps next time, you ask before undressing. Jason groaned quietly. Yeah, good advice. Despite the awkward moment, some of the Valoran women kept glancing his way throughout the meal, not with anger, but with curiosity, and something else he couldn't quite place. As the banquet ended, Selraya approached him. You may not have known what you were doing, she said with a small smile, but you've made quite an impression. Jason scratched the back of his head. Is that good or bad? She said, depends on what happens next. As she walked away, Jason stood in the glowing hall, unsure if he had just made a huge mistake, or the most interesting beginning possible. Jason Hartley woke up the next morning, hoping that the awkward moment from last night had passed quietly. After all, he thought, maybe they'll forget it. Cultures mix up all the time, right? But the moment he stepped out of his room, he knew something had changed. The hall outside was busier than usual. Several Valoran staff members paused to look at him. Some gave polite bows, others giggled softly behind their hands. Jason frowned. That hadn't happened yesterday. Lior and his guide was already waiting. But today Leorin had a strange look. On his face, part confusion, part amusement. Good morning, Lieutenant Hartley, Leorin said with a small bow. Sleep well? Jason gave a tired smile. I slept okay, but something's weird. Everyone's looking at me like I grew. Second head, Leorin hesitated. Ah, so, you have not checked the news feeds yet? Jason blinked. No, why? Without a word, Leorin lifted a small floating screen from his belt and tapped it. A holographic image appeared in front of Jason, a moving picture, bright and colorful. At the center of the image was Jason himself. His face, his folded robe, his undershirt, his confused expression from the banquet. The image had a glowing title beneath it in swirling Valoran script. Jason raised an eyebrow. What does that say? Leorin translated with a very serious tone. It says the shirtless envoy, humanity's bold gesture of unity, or courtship. Jason's mouth dropped open. You've got to be kidding me. Leorin shook. His head, the moment you removed your robe, was captured and shared. It spread across Valora Prime overnight. There are already hundreds of responses. Some are confused, some are angry, but many are curious, fascinated even. Jason groaned. I didn't mean anything by it. I was just hot. Leorin gave a small smile. Yes, I believe you. But not everyone does. They walked toward the central hall where today's diplomatic meetings were scheduled. As Jason passed through the corridors, more Valorans nodded to him. A few even waved. One young assistant dropped her datapad when she saw him and quickly turned red, or rather light blue, which was how Valorans blushed by the time they reached the main chamber. Jason was trying to keep his head down. Unfortunately, that was not going to help him. As he entered, an announcer's voice echoed gently through the room, representing Earth. First Contact Envoy, Lieutenant Jason Hartley, also known by the name now trending across the Accord, the Shirtless Envoy. Jason froze mid-step. Wait, what? Polite applause followed. Not loud, but definitely real. Jason looked around. Several delegates were whispering to each other. Some were clearly amused. One or two gave him respectful nods. A furry delegate from the planet Harana even gave him a thumbs dash up. Jason sighed and took his seat as the meeting began. Selraya, the same woman who had spoken to him during the banquet, stood at the center platform. Today, she wore a robe of deep silver. Her voice was calm and controlled. Fellow members of the Accord, she said, yesterday's banquet brought a unique moment of cross-cultural expression. While some were surprised, others saw in it a gesture of honesty. Lieutenant Hartley's actions, while unintended, have sparked conversation across our worlds. Jason looked down, embarrassed. Selraya continued. Our tradition sees the removal of ceremonial garments as a personal and meaningful act. But let us not rush to judgment. Let us instead ask, what does this moment teach us about humanity? Several voices murmured agreement. Others still looked unsure. Later, after the meeting, Jason was approached by a group of Valoran women. They wore soft blue and violet robes, each with flowing patterns that changed with their movements. One of them stepped forward. You are Lieutenant Hartley. Jason nodded. That's me. And before you say anything, yes, I know about the robe thing. I didn't mean anything by it. The woman tilted her head. But you must understand, most of us have never seen such a direct act. Here, modesty is normal, but boldness is rare. Some see it as rude, others see it as exciting. Jason chuckled nervously. That wasn't the kind of excitement I was going for. Another woman stepped forward, smiling gently. You have caught the attention of many. Some even sent you ... offerings. Jason blinked. Offerings. She handed him a small glowing box. Inside were shiny stones and a small folded ribbon. A traditional Valoran symbol of romantic interest. Jason looked down at it, confused. This is for me? They nodded together. Back in his quarters that night, Jason sat with the box in front of him, rubbing his forehead. This is not how I thought my first diplomatic trip would go, he muttered. Leorin stood nearby, trying not to laugh. You have done what many diplomats try and fail to do, gain attention and respect. Strange as it may be. I didn't want attention. I just wanted a peaceful visit. And yet, Leorin said with a wise tone, sometimes peace begins. With an honest mistake, Jason leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling. Great, I'm an accidental symbol of intergalactic romance. Leorin smiled. Yes, and tomorrow. Make it even more interesting. Jason groaned again, but deep down he couldn't help feeling a little curious himself. What exactly would happen next? The next morning, Jason Hartley stood in front of the mirror, brushing his hair with more care than usual. I'm not going to mess up today, he said to himself. No removing clothes, no surprises, just quiet diplomacy. He had received a new robe from the Accord, dark green with golden threads. It was more formal than the blue one, and he had no idea if this meant he had been promoted or just politely warned. Either way, he decided to behave carefully. Leorin knocked on the door and stepped in. Carrying a glowing scroll, You have been invited to a private garden, he said. By Selraya. Jason blinked. Wait, the head of the High Circle. Yes, Leorin replied. It is rare. She only invites people she finds interesting. Jason raised an eyebrow. Interesting good or interesting bad? Leorin gave a soft smile. It depends on what you do next. Jason followed Leorin through the palace corridors and out into the glowing garden paths. Birds chirped softly in the trees. The air smelled like flowers and rain. Waterfalls whispered in the distance. Everything was calm, but Jason's nerves were anything but. Selraya waited near a round bench made of crystal-like stone. She stood next to a table set for tea, wearing a robe of gentle blue. When she saw Jason, she nodded once. Lieutenant Hartley, she said.
Thank you for
coming. Jason bowed slightly. It's an honor, Speaker Selraya. Please, sit. Jason sat carefully. The cushion was soft and the table was filled with small snacks, glowing fruit, flat pastries. Something that looked like jelly cubes. Selraya poured tea from a curved glass pot. I wish to speak with you in private. Not as a council leader, but as someone curious. Jason accepted the tea with both hands, as Leorin had taught him. Of course, I'm open to any questions. Selraya studied him for a moment. Tell me something. Did you know what your action at the banquet would mean? Jason shook his head. Not at all. I was just hot. On Earth, we don't think twice about taking off a jacket. Selraya gave a soft smile. Yes, I have reviewed Earth customs. You are less formal than we are. Bold sometimes. Direct. Jason nodded. We try to be honest. But sometimes that gets us in trouble. Selraya looked into her tea. Some of our people saw your action as an insult, but many others saw something else. A message, perhaps. Jason raised an eyebrow. A message? She met his eyes. That humans are not afraid to be open. That you do not hide behind layers. Jason wasn't sure what to say. Well, I guess we try not to. Selraya leaned slightly forward. Where 3 other Accord worlds have already sent messages to us. They wish to meet you. They say humanity may be the refreshing spark the Accord needs. Jason laughed nervously. Me. I'm just one guy in a robe. I'm not even a high-ranking diplomat. Sometimes one spark is all it takes to light a fire, she said. Jason looked around the peaceful garden. I came here just hoping to make a good impression. Now I feel like I've started something I don't fully understand. Selraya stood and walked slowly toward a small glowing tree. Jason followed. We Valorans live by patterns, she said. Tradition. Careful steps. Your rival has broken that pattern, and yet it has not caused harm. It has opened eyes. Jason smiled a little. So you're not mad? Selraya turned to him with a rare sparkle in her eyes. Not at all. In fact, I'm curious about what you will do next. Jason thought for a moment. Honestly, I'd like to learn more. About you, about this world, and about how we can work together, without any more accidents. She laughed softly, a quiet, beautiful sound. Then perhaps we start again. It's equals. Jason held out his hand, remembering that it was a sign of friendship on Earth. Deal. Selraya hesitated for a moment, then placed her hand in his. Her touch was cool and light, like moonlight. Later that evening, Jason returned to his quarters to find his room filled with small gifts. More ribbons, small stones, even a sculpture of himself made out of glowing sand. Leorin stood in the corner looking amused. Your ... admirers have grown in number. Jason groaned. Not again. There is one more note, Leorin said, handing over a folded scroll. Jason opened it. Inside was a simple message. Your honesty has shaken the stars. Meet me under the twin moons tomorrow night. Our Jason blinked. Whose are? Leorin shrugged. Perhaps a poet. Or perhaps someone ready to rewrite tradition with you. Jason sat down on the edge of his bed. I came to make peace. I didn't expect to start a revolution. Leorin smiled. Well, you're human. You do unexpected things. Jason leaned back and looked up at the ceiling. Tomorrow night, under the twin moons. That sounds like something out of a movie. But somewhere inside, he was beginning to feel something new. Not fear. Not confusion. Adventure. And maybe, just maybe, friendship. Or something even more surprising. Jason Hartley stood by the wide window of his room, staring at the 2 glowing moons rising in the night sky. One was soft blue, the other a pale silver. Together they lit the garden below in gentle colors, making the whole world look like a dream. He held the note in his hand, still trying to guess who had sent it. Your honesty has shaken the stars. Meet me under the twin moons tomorrow night. He had asked Leorin, and even checked the guest list, but there were many Valoran names, starting with R. He had no idea which one it could be. And yet, he was curious. He put on his green robe and stepped outside. The night air was cool and full of flower scents. Lights floated above the path like slow-moving fireflies, guiding his way to the central garden, the place under the twin moons. Jason's footsteps were quiet on the soft stone path. As he reached the garden, he noticed someone already waiting. Near the water fountain, it was a Valoran woman, wearing a simple white robe with no symbols or gold threads. Her long silver hair flowed gently in the breeze. She turned when she heard him. "Lieutenant Hartley," she said, her voice soft. Jason stopped in surprise. "You're R," she smiled. "My name is Relina. I'm a language scholar and cultural advisor to the council." Jason relaxed a little. "So you're not here to report me for another robe mistake?" Relina chuckled. "No, I'm here because I watched your speech. I saw your moment at the banquet, and I saw how you handled the misunderstandings that followed." Jason stepped closer, feeling more at ease. "Well, it wasn't exactly planned. That's what made it honest," she replied. "So many diplomats hide behind layers of words and robes. But you showed something true. And now, people are listening." Jason raised an eyebrow. "Listening to what?" "I didn't even say anything important." Relina stepped beside him and looked up at the moons. "Sometimes action speaks louder than language, and you've created a wave. Some think humans are wild, others think you're refreshing. I'd all agree, something is changing." Jason leaned on the stone railing, looking at the moonlit pond below. "But I didn't mean to start anything." Relina nodded. "I believe you. But now that you have, what will you do next?" Jason thought for a moment. "I think I want to learn more about you, your people, about the Accord." Relina smiled again. "They'd walk with me." They walked slowly through the garden, talking about small things: music, earth, food, funny language mistakes. Jason learned that Valoran humor involved wordplay, glowing fruit, and a game that involved floating stones and logic puzzles. Relina laughed when he tried to describe pizza, but soon their talk turned serious. "The Accord is old," Relina said. "We have peace, yes, but also too many rules, too much fear of mistakes. We follow tradition because we are afraid to change." Jason listened quietly. "You, however," she continued, "you are change. Humans are still new to space. But your emotions, your open ways, they challenge us. Is that a good thing?" Jason asked. Relina paused. "It could be. Change always brings risk. There are those on the council who feel you are dangerous, unpredictable." Jason sighed. "That sounds familiar. But I think," Relina said, turning to him, "that you can also be the bridge." Jason met her eyes. "A bridge? Yes," she said. "A link between our world and yours. Between control and courage. Between tradition and truth." Jason was silent for a long moment. "I never saw myself that way," he admitted. "But if I can help, I want to try." Relina nodded. "Then I want to help you." She reached into her robe and pulled out a small silver stone, smooth and glowing. Faintly, she handed it to him. "This is a memory stone. It can hold thoughts, images, even feelings. I want you to carry it. Use it to record your journey, the truth as you see it." Jason took the stone carefully. It was warm, like it had been holding the light of the moons. "Thank you," he said. Relina looked up at the sky again. "There's more. Tomorrow, the council will vote on whether to offer Earth a stronger alliance or to delay further contact." Jason looked surprised. "Already? I thought that would take months." "Your presence has sped things up," she said, trying not to smile. "Some think Earth is not ready. Others think you've already proven more than enough." Jason frowned. "What do I do?" Relina stepped closer. "Speak again. Not just at a meeting. Speak to the people. All of Valora. A broadcast. Honest. Simple. Like you always are." Jason swallowed. "That sounds scary." Relina tilted her head. "That's why it will work." He laughed softly. "Really? Believe in me?" "I believe," she said, "that truth matters. I think that's what you're made of." They stood there in the moonlight, quiet for a moment. Jason looked at the twin moons above. One blue, one silver. Different, but together. Maybe that was the point. "Okay," he said. "I'll do it." Jason Hartley sat quietly in his chambers, staring at the glowing memory stone in his hand. The soft blue light pulsed gently, almost like it was alive. Tonight, He was to give a speech that might change the future of his planet and the future of the entire galactic accord. His mind raced. What should he say? How could he explain humanity to the Valorans and to all the species listening across the accord? Leorin knocked gently and entered with a calm smile. "Lieutenant, the audience awaits. You are ready?" Jason sighed and stood. "Ready. I'm not sure if I'm ready for anything right now." Leorin laughed softly. "We've already done more than many diplomats do in a lifetime. You've been honest, bold, and true. That is what people want." Jason nodded slowly, trying to find courage. He adjusted his green robe, took a deep breath, and followed Leorin to the Grand Hall. The chamber was vast and filled with delegates from dozens of worlds, their shapes and colors unfamiliar to Jason. A great holographic screen hung above the stage, displaying the symbols of the Accord and the words, "Unity in Diversity." When Jason stepped onto the platform, a quiet hush fell over the crowd. He looked out at the many eyes curious, hopeful. Cautious, he cleared his throat. "Honored members of the Galactic Accord," he began, his voice steady despite his nerves. "I am Jason Hartley, Lieutenant of Earth's diplomatic mission. I come here not as a perfect ambassador, but as a human being." He paused, feeling the weight of the moment. We humans are a strange mix. We are curious, sometimes reckless, but always honest in our feelings. We do not hide behind masks or endless words. We speak what we mean, even if it is difficult. Glanced at the faces before him. Some nodded. Others watched silently. "Recently, I made a mistake. I removed my ceremonial robe at your banquet, not understanding your customs. I thought it was normal. On Earth, we remove layers to feel comfortable, not to send messages." He smiled a little. "That moment surprised many of you, and it surprised me too. But it showed me something important." Jason took a breath and continued, "We are different. Our customs, our ways of showing respect, our very ideas of privacy and openness, they are not the same. But that does not mean we cannot understand each other. It means we have to try harder." The crowd was silent. Hanging on his words, peace is not built on perfect agreement. It is built on respect for differences and the courage to face them. I believe humanity is ready to learn, to grow, and to share what we have with the stars. He looked directly at the holographic screen, where images of Earth, its oceans, forests, cities glowed brightly. Earth is a young world full of life and hope. We want to be part of this great accord, not just as members, but as friends. Jason's voice grew stronger. "We offer our hands to you, not just in diplomacy, but in friendship, in shared dreams, and in building a future where all species can thrive." He stepped back, breathing heavily. The hall was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, the applause began. It started small, from a few delegates. Then it grew louder, spreading through the room like a wave. Jason smiled, relief flooding through him. After the speech, Selraya stood beside him on the platform. "That was honest," she said softly. "Exactly what we needed," Jason nodded, and just spoke from the heart. Selraya looked at the council members, who were whispering among themselves. "The vote will happen tomorrow," she said. "But tonight you have already changed many minds." Jason walked off the stage with Leorin. Delegates approached him, offering congratulations and kind words. One delegate, a tall blue-skinned woman with shining eyes, shook his hand. "Your words brought hope, Lieutenant Hartley." Jason smiled. "Thank you. I hope this is only the beginning." Back in his quarters, Jason placed the memory stone on his desk. It had recorded every word of his speech. Leorin sat nearby, looking thoughtful. "You did well," he said. "Tomorrow, the future of Earth and the Accord will be decided." Jason nodded, trying to sleep but feeling excitement and worry mixed inside him. The next day, the council gathered for their vote. Jason watched as each representative cast their decision. Some were firm yes, others hesitated, and a few voted no. After what felt like hours, the final result appeared on the great screen. Earth accepted into Galactic Accord with full diplomatic status. The room erupted in applause and cheers. Jason felt a warmth spreading inside him, a mix of pride, relief, and hope. Selraya approached him with a smile. "Welcome to the Accord, Lieutenant." Jason smiled back. "Thank you. I'm ready to learn, to help, and to build peace." As he looked around the hall, Jason realized something important. Being human wasn't a weakness. It was a strength, honesty. Courage and kindness could cross even the deepest divides in the galaxy. And sometimes, all it took was one unexpected moment, one robe removed to start a new chapter for all. After the Council's historic vote, a new day dawned for Jason Hartley and the people of Earth. The long-awaited acceptance into the Galactic Accord was no longer just a hopeful dream. It had become reality. Jason stood on the balcony of the Valorane Palace, looking out over the city bathed in morning light. The twin moons had set, but their gentle glow still seemed to linger in the sky. The air smelled sweet with blooming flowers, and distant birds sang their morning songs. Leorin joined him quietly, holding 2 cups of warm tea. "You look peaceful," Leorin said with a smile. Jason took a sip. "I feel peaceful. Ow! But also a little overwhelmed. Everything changed so fast." Leorin nodded. "Change is never easy, but it is necessary. And you have been brave." Jason smiled. "Have done it alone." Just then, footsteps approached. Selraya, the Speaker of the High Circle, appeared, her blue robe flowing gently in the breeze. "Lieutenant Hartley," she greeted him warmly. "The Council has asked me to invite you to join us at the next Accord Sumitaz's official." Representative Jason blinked in surprise. "Me? Really?" Selraya nodded. "Your honesty and courage open doors for many worlds. We want your voice in the conversations to come." Jason felt a surge of pride. "I will do my best." Selraya smiled. "We will help each other. That is what the Accord is for." Days passed, and life in the Valeron capital began to feel more familiar. Jason learned more about the customs, the languages, and the people. He met scholars, explorers, and diplomats from distant stars, all eager to share their knowledge. Relina, the cultural advisor who had invited him under the twin moons, became a close friend. Together, they explored the city's markets, tasting strange fruits and exchanging stories about Earth and Valora. One afternoon, Jason visited a large museum filled with artifacts from across the Accord. He stood before a display showing the histories of many planets, including Earth. A small group of young Valeron children gathered nearby. Curious about the human visitor, "Why did you take off your robe at the banquet?" one girl asked with wide eyes. Jason smiled gently. "On Earth, sometimes we remove layers to feel comfortable. I didn't know it would cause a surprise here." The children laughed softly, and Jason felt a warm connection. Maybe he thought the future would be about understanding these differences, not fearing them. Weeks later, Jason attended the Accord Summit, where representatives gathered to discuss peace, trade, and exploration. For the first time, Earth's voice was part of the great conversation. He spoke about humanity's hopes and challenges, about learning from others, and about building friendships across the stars. After the meetings, Selraya approached him. "Once more, the Accord needs more people like you," she said. "People who are honest, brave, and willing to learn." Jason nodded. "I want to help make this galaxy a better place for everyone." That evening, Jason stood once again under the twin moons. The city glittered below like a sea of stars. Relina joined him, her silver hair shining in the moonlight. "You have changed many minds," she said softly. "Not just with words, but with your actions." Jason looked up at the moons. "I never imagined I would be here, part of something so big," Relina smiled. "Sometimes the smallest actions like removing a robe can lead to the greatest changes." Jason laughed quietly. Maybe the universe likes surprises. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching as the moon slowly moved across the sky. Months later, Jason received a message from Earth. His family sent pictures of their home and stories about new discoveries. He felt a deep connection to both worlds. the one he came from. And the one he was helping to build. Jason understood now that being human meant more than just being from Earth. It meant being honest when others hid the truth, being brave when others were afraid, and being open to change, even when it was hard. 1. Morning, Jason stood at the launch bay of the Valeron spaceport. A new ship was ready to take him back to Earth briefly before. His next mission among the stars? Leorin handed him a small gift. A glowing ribbon woven with threads from the Valoran gardens. For courage, Leorin said, and for friendship. Jason smiled, tying the ribbon around his wrist. Thank you, Leorin, for everything. As he boarded the ship, Jason looked back one last time at the world that had taught him so much. He knew this was only the beginning of a journey not just through space, toward understanding, peace, and hope. And under the endless stars, Jason Hartley was ready. The end.